Welcome to Helsinki Photo Festival's webinars or seminars, or as we call them, the Helsinki Diplomatic sessions. Today, let me quickly introduce you to Helsinki Photo Festival. It's a festival that runs every year for about 12 weeks in the greater Helsinki area. And every year the festival has a theme, and then photographers apply to an open call. This year it's fearless, and this year we have been a little bit out of the, not only been exhibiting artists, but also taking the artist in front of the screen to give an opportunity to learn more about their photography. Today we have 3 photographers with us. We will have Felix Schöppner from Germany. We will have Kicki Lundgren from Sweden and Bobst from Switzerland. Welcome. The first speaker, we will have Felix Schöppner, which has been sending us quite an unusual submission, but it has been standing out so strongly. It's so futuristic that I'm really keen to learn a little bit more about his works. Felix, the screen is yours. Please bring us your work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. It's about my project called Cognition, and I'm very happy to be part of this year's version of the festival and also of the diplomatic sessions. First of all, I want to introduce myself quickly. My name is Felix Schöppner. I'm 31 years old and I'm living in Leipzig, Germany, and I'm working as a photographer focused on landscape, architecture, and still life. I studied communication design with a focus on photography at University of Applied Science in Darmstadt, and graduated in March this year with my latest project called Growth, which is still ongoing, but it's not finished yet. After 10 years of being studied, I will continue my studies this year in the master's program called Visual Communication at Bobst University in Weimar for another 2 years, I guess. About my project, I started Cognition in summer of 2019. At this time, I started to work more in the field of still life and tried to put in some aspects of sculpture and installations into my body of work. I was looking for a link to one of my previous projects called Artificial Landscapes. I did this project in 2017 and 2018, and I photographed for this project laboratories in Germany, in which parts of nature were created to be able to do research independently of location and weather conditions. This was a starting point for Cognition because I want to have a link to the nature and to work in other possibilities of showing nature. Another starting point was and a few images I took before, kind of a sketchbook. The sketches were a testing area and a field of experimentation for me. For this series, I found many of the objects I was working with in DIY shops or construction markets. During one of my shopping tours through a shop in Frankfurt, I discovered a planet set made of foam and also a projector of the night sky, like you found those ones in the children's room. These 2 objects were the starting point for the first image called Doomsday, which is currently shown in the presentation. My way of working is very intuitive and it's kind of organic process. so that the themes and the images develop themselves. And most of the time, the starting point of an image is usually completely different from the previous one. So the input is always different to each other's. Sometimes it's only an object. Sometimes it's a story I was listening to, and sorry, there was a. Sometimes it was an object or another usage I was seeing in an object, another meaning, or which is mostly completely different to the original one. So a lot of my input was coming from newspapers or radio sessions and something like this. I listened a lot to programs because I was totally into learning about physical stuff. So this was my fountain, kind of. When I had the first idea, I did usually a lot of research about topics, mostly on the internet. And while I was doing research, I did first sketches. So photographs are mostly kind of process, and I don't take images to only have an image and to put it into a frame and hang them on the wall. So most of the time it's also a result of an examination of an issue that interests me. Back to the image called Doomsday. Doomsday was after 2 days being in the studio without sunlight. And after I finished this image, I knew that I want to continue working on the series. The thematic orientation of the human perception resulted in a certain way from my 2 previous projects called Artificial Landscapes and Figures. The way people perceive their environment, the fact that this depends on personal imprinting, had been on my mind for a long time before. But in contrast to the 2 previous projects, the focus was no longer on a documentary reproduction of found and recreated events. So I started in cognition to work on images that emerge from creative process, and only image by image and over a longer period, not in a short studio session. Physics, and especially astrophysics, emerged as a playing field for this exploration. But in the fun fact is that this subject was something I hated during my days at school. But the time is changing, and it changes me as well. So I started to work on this project for maybe 1 year. And about about the topic of the project is that the problem with human perception is that it can do a bit of everything. So we can see, we can smell, we can taste, touch, and hear. Our 5 senses. We can perceive our environment, and the acquired stimuli are processed in our brain. So, however, due to the large amount of stimuli, our brain can only process a small percentage of what we're actually perceiving. And what we perceive is therefore a healthy average of what our brain can process. And in addition, there are also areas that we cannot perceive with our human abilities because they are so small, because they're too far away in physically or temporally, or they're too complex. In order to be able to pursue these topics as well, we're dependent on technical aids. This already began 1,000 years ago when people do cave drawings to document the stars in the sky. or set waypoints for the sun in order to be able to make the first classification of a year into our 4 seasons now. And in the further history, a variety of tools were developed to explore the sky or to do any other any other discoveries, sorry. And during Renaissance and industrialization, and finally the invention of the computer, the number of discoveries increased rapidly. So today we have the problem is today the same, that the majority of the results we get from the discoveries and the research is that the results are mostly numerical and rarely visual. So on the basis of these values and graphics, illustrations, and models are designed to visualize the findings. The problem is that quickly arises here is the proportionally correct representation of the content. So most representations usually deviate from the actual proportions at one point in order to maintain readability. And one example for this is the planetary model usually represents the proportions of the planets to each other as well as their distance to the sun, but their own size is rarely inverted because otherwise the model would be too difficult to read the model. The planets would be too small or too far away, and you couldn't read the model. So the photographic reproduction of a case like this is nearly impossible. So as a conclusion, I developed my own models, and I did not want to photograph just a physical model of planets or something else. So I wanted to make my own photograph claims with my images about how an astrophysical model could look like, or how the Big Bang looked like, or how the planets are moving in the night sky. So I was working on models, and it was very important to me that they maintain the readability of the motif. So I choose objects that are as common as possible or familiar to us. So I give them a new function in my images, and I wanted to get a readability into my images. And besides that, I wanted to enable the viewer to interpret my images. And during talking, I totally forgot to move through my presentation.
It's really stunning. I mean, your cognition series is, I feel a little bit I would be as back in the university.
Yeah, it seems a bit like this.
Can I ask you, Felix, how do you think the I mean, your picture's really standing out there. I mean, the cognition series is definitely something that is very scientific. It's not what usual, normal. I mean, this is something that you would probably put into a science museum. Now, you have been winning with this series at the Helsinki Photo Festival in 2021. How do you think the audience is reacting to your works? Have you? I mean, you have been exhibiting somewhere else before, what we understood. What kind
Yes.
of did you get?
Unfortunately, I could not answer this question properly because every show where the images were shown, I couldn't see this. I couldn't be there. But what I want to do with my images is that I want to have the viewer next on my side. I want to show them, okay, this is my way, how I went to this process and how I learned about the image, the topics while I was taking the images. So it's like I want to invite the viewer as a participant of my discoveries and of my process, I would say.
But have there been? I mean, I understood. I assume that it's related to, because you started your theme in recent years. That was just before COVID, so I assume that you had some shows just during the COVID time. Have there been any kind of digital messages? I mean, has there people left some kind of feedback to you that would give you some kind of knowledge of how they would interpret your works?
No, unfortunately not. There were a lot of messages like that the people like my images, and it's another point of view to look on certain topics. But yeah, it was not that focused messages, unfortunately. But maybe what is the reaction in Helsinki? Do you have any reactions you can?
Well, from Helsinki, I can tell you. I mean, we've been so mind blown by your scientific approach that our team of juries, I mean, the internal team has decided, hey, this is so far out. It won, so to speak, in our internal competition that we made a poster with one of your works, as you know. So you ended up at the streets of Helsinki, and there's been many people just coming, hey, can we take this posters? This is really a little bit intriguing. What has this to do with Fearless? We have also been, this year we have done something else that this year we have added QR codes to all our works, giving the audience or the spectators the possibility to read up, like, who is this artist, what this is all about in English, Swedish, and Finnish. And you are amongst the most popular artists in this festival. So I mean, I can only congratulate that. Yeah. I mean, you are very. I mean, it's as I said, we collect data. Sorry, that's how it is. We're living in a data-driven world, but we can see there's a lot of people really curious to read up on you. So this reaction I can give you from Helsinki.
Oh wow!
And as said, I mean, there is so many different ways how Fearless can be interpreted, and you just stand out. I mean, you kind of like, you have your own position, your own pole position, so to speak, in the race of Fearless. So from that perspective, this is what I can tell you from Helsinki.
That's really nice to hear, because one thing I was thinking for maybe 1 or 2 years now is, when you're working as an artist or as a photographer, you're mostly in your bubble. What you're looking at, what kind of photographs, what kind of paintings, whatever. So most of the time, you're in the bubble where you see the images you like. Mostly on Instagram, it's like Instagram phenomenon. And when I'm looking at the images in my computer boards thing, it's like, okay, I'm one part of a big ocean. I'm one tiny fish, and it's always funny if you see something what's outside of the bubble. So most of the time, the view of yourself is so focused on the area where you're working on, when you're working it, and the topics what you're dealing with. So it's always funny to hear something new, like what you told before, and it's something that I couldn't realize this way like you did.
Right. Well, I mean, I as I said, we are trying to keep our eyes wide open in Helsinki. We're really looking for the variety of interpretations of the theme. It's not just like send some pictures and you win. We actually really try to ask the artist, what is it? What are these pictures about? Why do you send us this? Can you explain it? And I mean, you did it. You did both very nice. I mean, it's not only your pictures. It's just like how you explained the whole story and your whole approach. And the jury couldn't. I mean, you were one of the most voted artists in the whole competition. You're really standing out. But on the other hand, you are, as you know yourself, very much in the scientific bubble. I mean, this is. I mean. I think it's. I mean, we are really happy. Me as artistic director speaking, really happy that you kind of got a view from the general public or general team, which is from different backgrounds, saying like, "Hey, this stands out. Let him have his chair," so to speak. So for this, we're really happy to have you in this edition of. Fearless in Helsinki this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But now I think it's time to introduce the next speaker, next photographer. Thank you, Felix, so much. Stay online. We will continue our conversation. So now I think it's time to introduce the next speaker. Welcome back. We are now with the next speaker. We have from Sweden, Kicki Lundgren from Uppsala. Welcome.
Tack. Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. How did you enjoy Helsinki? I understood that you got some little travel grant and you were actually all around Helsinki last week.
Yeah, it was very nice to see the festival and all the other pictures, and it was really nice. So,
fantastic.
And I think the Hanna Holmen also was a beautiful place to have an exhibition on. I'm glad I was there at the Nordic Village.
Yes. I mean, it is one of the nicest or most beautiful exhibition that we were able to set up this year, since it's so much in the nature and sort of in an art park. So it is. We are also very proud of this exhibition. But let's come back now to your theme. I mean, you are one of the Nordic Village winners, which is a smaller contest within the large contest. So just to explain it to the audience, we have every year an open call. We are selecting 50 international open call winners. And then as an additional contest, we are kind of putting a focus into Nordic talents. And these Nordic talents go a little bit aside the international competition. And in this competition, you won with your series Winter Dip.
Yeah, thank you. Can you see my picture now, or?
Not yet. But I mean, we are getting there. Yay! So please, the screen is yours. I keep silent.
Now you can see my picture. Is it like that? Or
Yeah, it's perfect.
yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Kicki Lundgren, and I'm from Sweden, as you heard. And since I graduated from the Nordic School of Photography in Stockholm for a long time ago, in 1992, I have almost only worked with my own personal projects. And for the moment, I'm working with a project about North European pensioners that have been settled down in Spain, and that you can see on my website if you're interested. But and I'm drawn to nature in my picture. I like people to get surrounded by the elements of nature, and I often return to water. So, for example, in my book Floating, I was photographing people swimming or bathing in the Mediterranean. So when the pandemic came and I could no longer travel to Spain, then I came up with this idea to photograph winter swimmers. And I started to join different Facebook groups for winter swimmers. And I got immediately responses from people who wanted to be photographed. I also kept it to my hometown, Uppsala, as to not contribute to the spread of the virus and its surrounding, of course. And it's an ongoing project. I will continue to photograph this winter and maybe more winters as well. And hopefully I will go traveling then to the north of Sweden and maybe to Finland as well, as I know they have many people who go in the water during winter times. And I think it started with my fascination of the. This is not the first picture. Aha, this was the one. I think it started with the fascination of the beauty of the bodies and the black water. I think it was really beautiful. And then I'm also, of course, really impressed by the courage of the winter waders. I think you need a really strong belief in your own body to cope with these extreme conditions. Feet and hands go numb, and those who bathe for the first time, they can't breathe, they hyperventilate. It's really scary. But if you can do it, it's an incredible, wonderful feeling, they tell me, afterwards. And it's also really nice to be enclosed by nature during winter time. And in Sweden, during the pandemic, it was really popular with winter swimmers. And I think it was because it was something you could do together with others during the pandemic. Otherwise, we were just out walking, but this was something you could do. For example, when I photographed this man, it was a long queue of people who wanted to go in this icy water. And one day I was walking on this bridge, and then I saw two guys. They were sawing out like a grave, big hole in the ice of the river. And I asked them what they were doing, and they told me that they were going to jump from the bridge into the ice-cold water. And then 2 hours later, they managed to create this hole, and one of them jumped. It was just really scary. And the most important for the beginners is to take control of their breathing. Say this woman, she wanted me to come with her in the water. And some people, they even dip their head in the water. And to taking a dip during winter time, it has many good health effects. They kept telling me you get rid of your depression, you get rid of your joint pain and other things. But for me, who have never been in the water during winter time, I really like swimming during summer, and that's throwing yourself into death and managing to survive. I think it's really scaring. So I really think it fits into the theme of the festival. That was it from me.
I'm back on screen, and the studio has gone, but that's okay. We just continue.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kicki.
Yeah, thank you.
This is how it really looks like with not. Yes, we are back in the studio. Perfect. Kicki, this is a really wonderful series. I just have to ask, how popular is ice swimming in Sweden? Because in Finland, this has been going on for, I don't know. I wasn't born. This has been going on for a very long time. But how this seems, I understood, like a little bit a new tendency in Sweden, or
yeah, this year it got really popular. But before I didn't hear about anybody who went into the lakes in wintertime. But this year I know many people who goes, and it's old people and young people and everybody.
You talked about how the body can cope with extreme conditions. I mean, do you think that the focus of being fearless in this physical, I mean, is the physical or mental ability to cope with those conditions?
Yeah, think about it, because they told me there was one man, he was in the water for 10 minutes, and then we were talking after that. He was doing his best time then when I was photographing him. He told me the first time you're scared of dying, so you really have to overcome something. Was that the answer of the question, or?
Yeah. I mean, that's. Did you? I would just go ahead and ask the next questions. Is it so that you asked the people that you photographed? I mean, was this a little bit like photojournalism, that you know whom you're photographing, or is it just that you just were walking by and taking pictures?
No, I went into this Facebook group for winter swimmers, and then I I told them I was a photographer. I wanted to take pictures, and asked if somebody wanted to be in the picture. And there were many people saying yes, they wanted them the picture for themselves as well. I always give pictures away, so that was no problem. But they had them on the Facebook profile, and so they were happy as well.
Okay, but I mean, this is also solving my next question: where is picture staged or not? I mean that obviously they were not. But I have one question. There's this one picture that you have been showing where the guy has been jumping down the bridge. It's one of the most popular pictures that we have kind of recognized from you. Please tell me, did he get safe into the middle of the whole thing, or?
Yeah,
because it's so scary, this picture, because it doesn't really say where will he land.
He landed in the water and then he came up.
Wow.
So it was really impressive, and I was questioning myself to do it. Maybe it's an accident, but he was going to jump anyway. I was just okay. I just find him doing that. So, but I have to wait a few hours until the hole was finished.
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe show one more time this picture. Just that the audience know. I mean, it doesn't really show really where will he fall. He really stands a little bit. It looks like it's a little bit abstract.
Can you see it now?
Not right now, but just go full screen.
Okay.
There it is. Yes.
Okay.
As everybody can see, I mean, it's not really. It can't really say. I mean, from this angle, he could also get somewhere else. I mean, it looks for me like a very small square. It's this. I think this picture made you the fearless winner in this competition. That we can tell you as well. I mean, this was really.
Yeah, it was an experience to meet this. It was another guy. He didn't jump, but he went into the water, and we pulled him up with this thing, that red white thing there. So
Did he do it again, or was this his only attempt?
He did it this day, and then he said he was going to do a trick another day. But then I was too scared if something was going to happen, so I didn't go there then.
Yeah, really wonderful pictures you have been bringing to us this year. I mean, I'm really happy. Just as a last question, so I mean, you're saying this winter dipping or ice swimming is like a new trend in Sweden. When is it that it really started? I mean, 10 years ago? Can you how long is this going on in Sweden these days?
This may be from the pandemic that started. Then everybody wanted to go winter swimming, but some people did it before.
Okay.
But not many people. I didn't know anybody who went into the water.
Okay.
So,
it's really nice to get to know what's happening in Sweden, and it's very nice to know that ice swimming is becoming a popular thing. I mean, I'm a Dane, and I know that winter swimming is becoming also popular in Denmark, and as well as sauna. So I mean, how is it with sauna in Sweden? But you have your Bobst, right?
yeah, we have it, but during the pandemic we couldn't go because it's really risky to go in the sauna then. So they did it without the sauna.
Wow.
But we have this competition in the north of Sweden that has been for maybe 10 years, competition in the winter swimming in Skellefteå. And then they have people from all the world who goes 25 meters and 50 meters in the river, and it could be 20 degrees zero. So that's
that's quite fearless. It's definitely something. I mean, because I do know. I mean, I would do something like this after coming out of the sauna. I could say like I can do a dip, but just straight on. That's impressive. Thank you so much for sharing your work and the background to winter dip with us. Thank you for being in Helsinki. It was would have been nice to meet you in person. I think we're going to do this the next time. And thank you very much for participating in our diplomatic sessions at Helsinki Festival.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot, Kicki.
Bye.
Yes. Hello, Christian.
Hello, Rafael.
Christian, thank you very much. You actually just left Helsinki, I believe, yesterday. You had just been here for 4 days. You have been participating this year's portfolio reviews. Then you stayed a few days longer for having a workshop, quite a successful workshop in Helsinki. That was very impressive to learn from you. And now you're back with us in this webinars presenting your works that won at Helsinki Photo Festival in the 21 editions. I give the screen to you and we continue after your presentation.
Thank you, Rafael. It's a pleasure to see you again after we just parted yesterday noon. My name is Christian Bobst. I'm a Swiss, Zurich in Switzerland-based photographer. My field is mainly reportage photography and documentary. I studied graphic design.
Christian, sorry for interrupting you. I mean, if you press full screen, I disappear.
Oh, wait.
I wait.
Okay. Wait a second, Rafael. I'm just going to be back. So now, do you have it?
I don't know. No, I don't. But I mean, we can continue. You can just continue introducing yourself, and that's I just listen to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, my second screen should be shared. Let me just share it again. Okay. So you should have it. Well, as I said, I'm doing a photojournalism, but I studied graphic design originally, and I worked in advertising for 15 years before I started to really seriously go into photography.
Christian, I have one more time to interrupt you. I don't do this on purpose, but if you can get your screen now in full screen, then we will be like extremely happy.
I have it in full screen, Raphael.
If you just press the play button, because right now we have just the frame. It's not full screen yet. I think you need to press the play button of the key presentation.
Well, there is no play button in that sense. You should actually see it. It's I shared it online. It's there. It's also on my wait.
See the small pictures. We only see like the. Maybe I should ask the tech.
Actually, I have shared my screen. There is nothing else I can do here right now.
My
tech is saying full screen, but I can't really help you at this point because I'm sitting on, 1,500 kilometers away from you. I would like to press all kinds of buttons for you, but I can't.
I am fully full screen, as full as I can go. Wait.
Green button? Not yet.
Yeah, I pressed play. I'm on full screen. Maybe there is a. Let me see.
Maybe it is what it is. Then we just go ahead.
Can you see the presentation now?
We can see the presentation, yes.
And if I'm wait, I'm going to. Can you see? Did the picture now change?
Yeah, but we still can see the frame of the software. But I mean, if it's as it is, then we just go ahead and just go. We'll be happy with you.
So now I'm again back on full screen. Is it full screen now?
Unfortunately, not. But I mean, we see your big pictures, but we see as well, like as you see the whole slideshow and all the buttons of the.
This is kind of weird because here I'm entering full screen and.
It's all right. I mean, I think we'll. I think the audience will be happy to see your pictures as they are. I mean, we still see them quite large.
Okay.
So, as we say in French, encore une fois, Christian, s'il vous plaît.
So I will just start like the video I have prepared for you, and then after that I will talk a bit more about my project and myself. So as we have lost enough time already, and
we have enough time.
Let's go.
Let's see the video.
Vas-y. Scusate.
So Raphael, were you able to see it?
To be honest, we got your presentation full screen in the meantime. but we didn't see your video. But I mean, your presentation is full screen. I mean, I think all is good.
So the video didn't play.
No, we heard good sound, and we got your presentation in full screen. So this is where we are at this point, and now we already with your first picture.
Okay, so this project is about wrestling in Senegal. It is something I started working on actually in 2012 when I was the very first time in Senegal. I started working on it without knowing, because I was there with the NGO, and I had a different assignment. But while we were there, in the village where we stayed, there was a small festival, you know, and during this festival, the villagers, they performed a wrestling fight, and I took some pictures there. And a couple of years later, Swiss Television addressed me, and they wanted to actually do a couple of short documentaries about photographers who are taking sports event abroad, like some exotic sports, and they asked me if I would know some exotic sports. So I told them I was photographing actually some wrestlers in Senegal years ago, and sent them the pictures, and they were like, "Great, let's do it." So they sent a team, a guy with a camera and a journalist, in order to film me while I was taking photographs. And this was 2015, you know, and the photographs you see here are actually from the first series of photographs I took in 2015. After the film was shown on Swiss Television, I was able to sell the whole story to a magazine. I was pitching it to Stern magazine in Germany, and they were very happy to publish it. And after that, I sent these 8 images, which you are about to see right now. I sent to the World Press Photo Festival Award, and it was a shock for me that I was like, it was the first time I sent something there. I was winning a second prize in a sports series. Now, what you have to know about wrestling and in Senegal is that this is actually a national sport in Senegal, and it is more popular than soccer, and soccer is very popular everywhere in Africa. So it is really a big thing, and this is something which is actually not very hard to discover. Actually, every travel guide has like La Lutte Sénégalaise, as it is called, on their first or second page. But when I got the request to shoot a story about sports, and I proposed wrestling, and I said yes. I had to do a lot of research, because I knew I would not be able to do the research in Senegal, as I had a film team with me. So I needed to be very well prepared, and I did all kind of readings and researches. And what I realized during my research is that most of the pictures I saw were actually just pictures of wrestlers during the fights, some in the stadiums, some out there in the villages. And immediately I started to look for pictures that would show that this is a national sport. So just like pictures like the one you see here, I wasn't able to find it. So I told myself, if this is really such a big thing, people must be watching these wrestling fights somewhere. Most probably somewhere in the streets or in bars or at home. So I got really interested to take more pictures of the, actually the whole thing, like the context of wrestling and what it would really mean, like to the Senegalese people. And I was even able to find like this guy who was building a statue of one of the most popular wrestlers. Unfortunately, This guy was losing a very important fight, so he actually disappeared after that, and the statue was never reassembled. But it shows how popular actually wrestling in Senegal is, as people would just build a statue from old cars, like in this case. There is also a newspaper that appears every day, every single day. So it's only about wrestling, and I found it interesting. I wanted to also show a bit the role of women, which is not very another role than just like actually being the bystanders and the fans. But even girls and women would read that paper because they are huge fans of these wrestlers. And the most successful wrestlers, they actually make really a lot of money. They make up to, like for one fight, up to 250,000, 300,000 euros just for one fight. And this is something, of course, that is happened in the last maybe 15, 20 years. Before, it used to be a sport that was more performed in the villages, and it was more popular amongst men and old men and young men. So it goes back a long time. I think wrestling, this kind of wrestling, goes back to the ancient Greeks. And in Africa, it's been a tradition with the tribes. You know, it was a preparation for war, of course, to be trained. And when the French colonialists came to Senegal, they actually well, they say that they found it a bit boring, so they said, well, why can't you just punch each other a little bit? So that's how actually another form of wrestling started. At least that's how they explained it to me there. Maybe it was a joke, but as a matter of fact, there are two kinds of wrestling in Senegal. One is a traditional form, which is like traditional wrestling, and the other one is called lutte avec frappe. This is like wrestling with punches of the fists. And you could find this even in small villages, as I said. This is one of the first pictures I took in 2012 when I was there with the NGO. And this picture is also from this series. And I realized that most of the other photographers would take these kind of pictures, you know, where the wrestlers would appear almost like sculptures sometimes, very sculptural. They're very impressive with their trained bodies, and it's actually beautiful to you know, you can make some very beautiful pictures, but that was not my first intention. I actually really wanted to show the whole context. And so I also went to the wrestling schools. I thought that was a very important aspect because like 15 or 20 years ago, the first wrestling school in Senegal was founded by a very famous wrestler who was called Balagai. And that's actually how the whole thing started to become so popular. And nowadays, a lot of young people are actually training everywhere in Senegal to become famous wrestlers. And the higher they go up, the harder they train, of course. Like in this case, it's a young man who is training here with a former wrestler who has been famous. So he is his successor. So the former wrestler's name is Lac de Guerre, and he gave himself the name of Lac de Guerre too. And he now became one of the really big names in Senegal also. So while most young people would train on the beaches and they don't have a lot of money, so they can't afford a gym, like the big stars, they really they can really afford to go to quite modern gyms in Dakar. This is a popular gym amongst wrestlers, which is the Club Olympique, where you can find all the big wrestlers training. Here in this case with tires of trucks. They are extremely heavy, so And this what you see here is actually how most young people in Senegal who aspire to become professional wrestlers would train. They would gather on the beaches and train there, and very often by the simplest means, like in one of the first pictures that you saw, they carry each other on their arms. And after that, after warming up, they would actually train. And in the background of this picture, you can see a boat. Now, these boats are the kind of boats a lot of young men take to cross the Mediterranean to go to Spain, because there is hardly any money in Senegal. Most people would earn like around 1,500 euros on average per year, while a successful wrestler can make up to 500,000 euros a year. And of course, that gives a lot of young people a whole new perspective. So I was photographing these young wrestlers. I was looking for them on the beaches. And while I did so, I found a guy who called himself Gerungor. He's in his 20s, and he's already been a successful wrestler at this point. He's been fighting a couple of fights in big stadiums, and he never lost one fight. And he was very open and friendly, and he let me photograph him, like not only during the training, but also during his spiritual meditations. Now you have to know that in Senegal, there's a very special thing with wrestling, because wherever you see wrestling fights, there is voodoo involved. Actually, they don't call it voodoo, they call it Grigri, which is kind of the same thing. They wouldn't agree so if I say that, but for like Westerners, our general term for this kind of black magic, white magic things is generally voodoo. And this is a situation where he went to the grave of his grandfather to pray, and he does this regularly, and he sacrifices some cow milk there in order to have the spirit and the force of his grandfather with him during the fights. This young man is very popular also in his quarter. He's a kind of a star, also among like the people in the village, and he also became kind of like a vigilante. He was like also a security guy, and he was taking care of cases where things were getting stolen, and if he would catch someone who would steal, he would give him a proper beat up. That's how things work in Senegal sometimes. Of course, there is police and there are official ways to handle these kind of things, but like amongst the villagers, there are, let's say, everybody knows everyone. And so sometimes if somebody in the neighborhood is stealing something, of course, this guy wouldn't beat them up badly, but he would just teach them a lesson. So, which is probably also maybe better for these young kids, because they don't want to, if they end up in jail, it's going to be, the consequences are far more dramatic for them. So before you saw one picture that was also in the series that won the World Press Photo Award. It was a slightly different picture than this one. So this picture just happened a few seconds after the one you saw before. And actually, Gerungor, this young guy, he regularly goes to the sea. So Dakar is surrounded by the ocean, and he would sacrifice some cow milk there and wash himself with cow milk in order to not only to purify his spirit, but also to gain the support of a very powerful spirit who allegedly lives there in the water. And this is something he does for the fights. So I followed Gerungor because he was very open. I went back since 2015 and I photographed his career. And this is just like a small selection of pictures you see, which I took between 2015 and 2021. because I wanted to have one example of a young man, you know, who's actually trying to become a famous wrestler, to see how if he would succeed or not. And the pictures you see here are actually preparations for the fight in a stadium. Here he walks to the stadium to go to a fight, to go to a tournament. And this picture was taken when we arrived there. And I especially went to Senegal for this fight, and believe it or not, it lasted for about 30 seconds, because he was actually, as a wrestler, he was kind of slim, because wrestlers are supposed to wait a lot and therefore eat a lot, but he wouldn't gain any fat on his body. And so he was very, very fast with his fists, and he was also punching very hard. So usually he won the fights, but they didn't last long. Like, there is only one round in Senegalese wrestling. So he punched the guy, the guy goes to the ground, and that's it. And I was hardly able to take a picture because everything went so fast. And then after the fights are very emotional, the fans, and it can even go to a point where, you know, it becomes dangerous. As you can see here, the fireworks in the audience are lit, and there are, with every wrestler there is a security team, because sometimes after the fights there would be quarrels in between the fans or in between the wrestlers, and it can become very physical. So even though Heru was winning that fight, his career was not going ahead, because the wrestlers are booked by promoters. And so you win a fight, you hope that you will be called by another promoter for a fight, because the wrestlers get paid with every fight, because they would bring like people to the stadium, they would have fans and who would watch the game on TV or the tournament on TV. And even though he never lost a fight, he didn't get any calls anymore. It was probably because he was actually, his fights were always over so quickly. And I believe it was because the promoters thought it was not so attractive to see him winning this way. So when I went back in 2020, he was actually not having a fight for 2.5 years. So the fight I was photographing was actually his last fight. And he had to work at the bar of his cousin and brother to make money. And from there he realized his career wouldn't go any further in wrestling. So he started to try to start a kickboxing career. He would train on the same beach as he trained before as a wrestler, where there's also like other young wrestlers training, and there is now a new generation of wrestlers again. Like, this is a few years later, and the whole thing starts again. Now there's a new guy in the village who is the new star, which is this guy here, who calls himself Toujours Prêt. That's his wrestling name, like always ready. And this is actually my closing picture here, because it kind of shows how, you know, the whole story starts over and over again. So like 98% of young men in Senegal who would invest so much time into the training in hope that they will become big stars one day, they end up actually with nothing, because of course, like, only very few can make it, and that was, and all of them don't actually even consider and don't even fear that they could be amongst those who are not making it. All of them think they are going to make it, and this was the reason why I actually sent this series to the Helsinki Photo Festival under the because I thought like it kind of matches the idea of fearlessness. So yes, that's the last picture. And if you would like to see some more images of this series, you can find it under this QR code. As I said, I was only able to show a few here in this 10 minutes. And that was it.
Thank you, Christian.
You're welcome. Were you able to see it in full screen?
Yes, I mean we saw the presentation. We actually did something we seldomly do. We ran the presentation from Helsinki, and we were trying to match your words as good as possible. And I think our team did quite well. We were just like, yes, this is the right picture. This is exactly the same thing he's talking about. So we somehow these technical things we have realized there is certain. Everybody is working on PCs, and then when there's a Macintosh presentation coming, and then it can go wrong. But I mean, I'm really proud of my team to be able to catch up with all the needs that we have. Yes, but coming back now to your presentation and your pictures and your background. I mean, you're one of the, may I say, one of the best photojournalists I have met in the world. I mean, you are. I mean, National Geographic, Stern, Geo, The Guardian. I mean, I don't know where your name doesn't pop up. So I mean, and I was lucky to be in your workshop, and I really understand that you really know your tools, your trade. You really know what you're doing. So I mean, if anybody will ever have a chance to see a workshop with Christian Bobst, I really can recommend it. He really knows what he's talking about. I mean, impressive. But coming back now to your series, and you already mentioned it in your presentation, but I just would like to go back into this one quickly. I need quickly to move back so that we get the screen back into our colors. This is, you know, this is a provisoric studio. When you started your presentation, there were two images about voodoo. And you already said something to us about it. There's one thing that I not really understand how it works. I mean, Senegal is a country which is follows. It's a Muslim country, but at the same time, they belong to Sufis. So, I mean, maybe you can something say about what's the difference between. I mean, what are Sufis? What is this, and how does voodoo connect to this one? This is where I'm a little bit lost. Would be very nice if you could explain us a little bit these three different things. How do they fit together?
Yes, it's 95% of people in Senegal are Muslims. And, you know, as everybody knows, there are different there is like the Sunnis, the Shiites, there's the Wahhabits, and actually, when it comes to Sufism is actually kind of like a philosophy within Islam. The Sufis are actually the mystics. They intend to be closer to God. For them, like meditation is more important than meditation and prayer, I would say, or prayer and meditation are more important than actually just following the rules of the Quran. Of course, therefore, like Wahhabits who are.
I'm sorry, now
on the rules, they would not actually call this the proper form of Islam. But so as they are not so much on the dogma, they're much more open-minded and much more tolerant than many Muslims you would find in the surrounding countries, you know, where you have. Actually, in Senegal, there is no extremism. It has never seen a terror attack so far. And the interesting thing is that even wrestling, as the most popular sport in Senegal, is actually not well seen in Islam, because these guys are, first of all, sports can be already a problem in many countries where they have like the Sharia. And then these guys are fighting like with almost naked bodies. So everybody told me when I was there, oh, sorry, I have to go and pray 5 times a day. And then they came back, and then they were actually going to see a wrestling fight or wrestling themselves, or even the spiritual leaders would support the wrestlers sometimes with amulets and then the whole Grigri and voodoo stuff is actually also completely not not Islamic. You know, it's on the contrary. It's like it's. So this is why I started to become interested in Sufism also in Senegal, and it was another story I did after this story.
I have actually a closing question because we are running out a little bit of time, but one very relevant question, because you mentioned it's like sometimes like your fighter had 30 seconds and then he punched the next one off. The question is, some of your pictures are so impeccable, perfect. How did you get these pictures? I mean, is it a lucky moment, or were you just already stunning and it happens, or can you something quickly say to that?
Well, you always have to be lucky to get a good shot, but then you punch luck, you know, by kind of trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. Yeah. And I'm glad nobody can see how many times I failed to take a good picture, because what you see here is maybe the last 1% of all the pictures I took.
Thank you. I mean, that's good to know, because we were thinking, how lucky can he be just like to have the perfect shot? But now we know that it's not only pure luck, it's a lot of practice. So thank you very much for telling us this. We are coming now slowly to an end of this show. Christian, thank you so much for being with us. It was, I mean, really, your series has been extremely, it has been very powerful, and I think you were the only photographer which has actually been showing a sport in a very peaceful country and environment. And it's also very nice to learn a little bit more about the African continent and what's happening there. And as you are traveling a lot as a photojournalist, you are one of the people that has been capturing this best during the last 2 years. So thank you so much for being with us. Now I quickly would like to hopefully to see all the other photographers are still all with us. I was just wondering, are any of the other photographers interesting to ask you a question? Felix, Kicki, any questions to Christian? Or Christian, any questions to Felix? I mean, can we mix this up a little bit?
I'm fine.
It's very interesting to see.
Okay. Christian, you had anything to Felix or Kicki?
Well, I was enjoying to see like the kind of the bandwidth of what photography can do, because I think what Felix and I are doing is actually shows like the bandwidth of possibilities in photography. And then of course with Kicki's work, it is more close to what I do, but you can also see her way of taking pictures is different, and also like, even though it's also kind of a sports topic, her interpretation is different and very interesting, and I don't have questions. I just enjoyed seeing all these photographs and this amazing work.
You're totally right.
Thank you. I mean, it has been definitively a bandwidth from coming from the scientific approach of lab photographs about how cognition works, to swimming in the deep water and jumping from high bridges without knowing if you end up in the square or not, to go to have a right punch in Senegal. Thank you so much for participating, all of you. It was a fantastic episode, and thank you very much. We are back on Thursday at 6:30 with, if I remember, Carla Kogelman from the Netherlands, Peter Flügler from Austria, and oh boy, I think Siri Svensson from Norway will be with us on Thursday. Thank you so much, and all the best to our followers. Helsinki Photo Festival ends September 30th, so check out the exhibition. Now we are running a countdown, 14 days to go. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.